wide system. We have over 100,000 service connections serving over 250,000 people, and we have 260 employees. A lot of the employees we like to have are local since our systems are spread out, and so that's one of the benefits. So jumping into water resources. I want to start by showing this video that we put together that explains the water journey in about 3 minutes, and then we'll kind of dive into it. Thank you to Bill and his staff for helping me put this together.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. And this video is available online on the YouTube, but I'll cover that in a bit.
The water we drink, water our plants with, and bathe in has a long and complex journey from the ground to our faucets in Superior. That's why it's so important that we continue our community's effort to save every drop. This is the water journey from the ground to the tap. Arizona Water Company is the main water provider for the town of Superior and has been since 1955. The town relies on 2 water supply sources, groundwater and Colorado River water. Physically, the main water supply for our community is groundwater. However, Arizona Water Company replaces the groundwater pumped by putting Colorado River water back in the ground. The 2 places that Arizona Water Company uses to recharge the groundwater aquifer are the Superstition Mountains Recharge Project and the Roosevelt Water Conservation District. Between these 2 projects, over half of the water used annually by the town of Superior gets put back into the ground as a practice of responsible water management. Superior's water gets pumped from 3 wells south of the Florence Junction. These 3 wells pump over 175 million gallons of water annually. From the East Salt River Valley subbasin of the Phoenix Active Management Area. Before the water makes it to the people in Superior, however, it has to get treated. Although the groundwater is already good quality, it must get treated for low levels of arsenic before making it to your home, business, or favorite restaurant in Superior. The process for treatment requires adding a coagulant to the water and then filtering the arsenic out of the water. The filter for water is similar to a sand filter. After the water is treated, the water is kept in a 375,000 gallon water storage tank located near the well sites. When it's needed, it travels 26 miles northeast in a 12-inch water main from the treatment site to another storage tank within the town of Superior's boundaries. Fun fact, the pressure inside the water main is 800 psi. This high pressure is unique to the Superior water system because of how far and wide the water has to travel. And the system requires specialized equipment to keep it functioning properly. After traveling the 26 miles, the water has made it to the Queen Creek tank in Superior, which holds up to 2.2 million gallons of water before it gets to the faucet. However, there is one more step. From the Queen Creek tank, the water goes to the town tank, a smaller tank that holds about 500,000 gallons of water. You've probably seen this tank up on the hill on your way out of town towards the Superior Bridge. After this point, the water is ready to get into the distribution system and make it to the faucet in any of your favorite spots in Superior. The journey for water in Superior is a long one, which is why it's important to maintain this strong water conservation ethic and mindset that is currently present within our community.
Cool. So that takes a lot of the information that I'm going to present and just puts it in a video for folks. Okay.
When something happens to your kitchen and you say,
This is ludicrous.
you get having trouble, don't panic. Don't be alarmed.
Can't account for ads ever. Okay. So really quickly, just to give a little background information. So Bill is our division manager for this area. As a water utility, we also serve water to about half of the city of Apache Junction. And when we look at our system and the service area that we provide water to, we combine the Apache Junction system and the Superior system together. So it's called our Superstition CCNN, or Certificate of Convenience and Necessity. I always forget that. And like I mentioned in the video, so this is the town of Superior. Our wells are actually over here at the Desert Well Field, and they have to travel, the water has to travel in an above ground main 26 miles uphill to get to the town. And these are the two storage tanks that were mentioned in the video as well. So there's the town tank and the Queen Creek tank that hold water for the community. Some quick nomenclature and words that we're going to be using that aren't super common. A very common way of measuring water in the water resource world is an acre foot, which is basically as much water as it takes to fill 1 acre of land with 1 foot deep of water. So it just makes it easier when we're talking about huge units of water to convert it to something large like that. And that's about 325,851 gallons. I have a hard time understanding what that means, and so our hydrologist explained it to me as that amount of water is typically enough water to provide about 4 homes in Superior with 1 year's worth of water. So just a little bit of context. Million gallons, because it pops up a few times in this presentation, is 3.07 acre feet, and then million gallons per day. So just some ways that we measure water when we talk about large volumes of water. Whenever we talk about water resources, it's important to mention the Department of Water Resources, and this stars roughly where Superior is, but this is a map that shows where the active management areas are, and I'll dive into what those are, but it's important to be aware of those when you're thinking about water for the state. From a statewide perspective, I always think these are good stats to make people aware of. As a state, this is about where the water gets distributed. So about 72% goes to agriculture, 22% is municipal, so like towns, cities, and where people live, and then 6% to industrial. And then as a state, these are our water supplies. About 41% groundwater, 18% of in-state rivers, which I'll go over in a bit, 36% Colorado River water, and then 5% reclaimed water. Reclaimed water is the treated wastewater. It's important to be aware of the difference between groundwater and surface water. I personally like this slide because before I got into water conservation, I had no idea what the difference was. But groundwater kind of fills the pore spaces in between the sand and the earth materials, but it is connected to surface water. This distinction is important, however, because as a state, these two types of waters are regulated differently. So they're connected, but they're regulated very differently. So surface water, so your main rivers, the regulations that manage those, it's called a prior appropriation doctrine, or first in time, first in right. So essentially the first people in Arizona that were using this water have higher priority or right to use that water. Versus groundwater is regulated through reasonable and beneficial use doctrine. So essentially if you can prove to the state that you need this water and it'll come to beneficial use, then you start the permitting process of being able to use that water. But they are separated by law and how they're regulated. So some examples of surface water supplies in the state, or that are used in the state, you've got Colorado River water. The big in-state rivers are the Salt and Verde rivers, and then the Gila River. I know we have a local water supply, which is Queen Creek. It's called an ephemeral stream, which means a stream that runs when there are precipitation events. So like when there's a lot of snow up here, or when there's rain. So the Department of Water Resources was basically put together. Oh yeah.
Does any of the Queen Creek water, when it's running really good, go to like, one of these basins to fill up, go back into the ground?
It's an interesting question, and I remember asking that exact question to our chief hydrologist, and he kind of showed me on a map where the water runs, and I think it runs back into one of the main streams, but I don't remember the exact name.
It's a tributary of the Gila, but it is a disconnected tributary. It goes down to Whitlow Dam and gets stopped there, so there's a disconnect. But it does go into the sands that feed the well field. So.
Thank you, Todd. So the Groundwater Management Act was basically an act put together in 1980 that was essentially saying, hey, as a state, we know that we use groundwater and we need to make sure that we regulate it appropriately. And so that was the start of the Department of Water Resources, the regulating body that was put forth to safeguard the health and safety and economic welfare of the public by protecting, conserving, and enhancing Arizona's water resources. And this is a photo from when the official Groundwater Management Act was put in place and the Department of Water Resources was started. So the Department of Water Resources essentially looked at the state, looked at where people were living in high populations and the groundwater aquifers, and determined that there are areas, active management areas, where water regulation, the discharge of water, and put back of water needed to be heavily managed. So we've got the Phoenix Active Management Area, the Tucson Active Management Area, Pinal, Prescott, and then the Santa Cruz. And they newly added the Douglas Active Management Area. So it used to be an INA, which is Irrigation Non-Expansion Area, but they've converted it to an active management area. Yes?
Is that because of what they're gonna be doing with the new three-way system coming in?
Why they converted the Douglas one from an INA to an AMA? I'm not exactly sure if the freeway had anything to do with it, but I do know that it went out to a public vote. So people were able to vote on whether or not they wanted the INA to turn into an AMA or not. And the final decision was that it should be converted into an AMA.
Well, recently, did they, take away some of the farming areas as well, though?
Down in
Well, in general, in Pinal County, there was some farming that was taken away as far as irrigation. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Well, the active management areas are established based on the groundwater, like the subbasins and the hydrology of where the water is going. It is possible for agriculture to get converted into, buildings and things like that, but that doesn't have to do with where the active management areas were determined. So essentially, in these parts of the state where there are active management areas, there are very strict regulations that any utility, anyone using the groundwater has to abide by, annual reports, and they have to show how much water they're taking out and how much water they're putting back in. Like I said, the boundaries of these areas are based on groundwater subbasins, and the purpose of the active management area is to address groundwater overdraft in critical areas throughout the state, and it's established groundwater rights for municipal, industrial, and agricultural water uses. So Superior is within the Phoenix Active Management Area, but it's actually within Pinal County, which is kind of confusing because there's Maricopa County, and then there's Pinal County, and there's Pinal AMA. So just a little bit of a distinction there. And each active management area has a goal that they're striving towards. So the Phoenix, Prescott, and Tucson AMAs are trying to achieve something called safe yield by 2025. And essentially what that means is they want to make sure that as much water is being taken out of that active management area is being put right back. And then the Pinal AMA, the goal is to preserve the economy and groundwater. Santa Cruz AMA is also a safe yield condition, but without the determined date. And the Douglas one, they're still trying to determine what the goal is. Oh, there's Superior. If you want any information about the safe yield goals, they've made this really cool interactive dashboard the Department of Water Resources has, where you can go in and you can basically click through and see, okay, which group is using Colorado River water, how much effluent, how much groundwater, and it takes all that data that the department is collecting and puts in a really great graph so you can understand what's going on and how things are being managed. So as far as the town of Superior goes, there's groundwater supplies, there's Colorado River supplies. I want to touch on effluent just because it is something that's important for people to start thinking about. Although it wasn't mentioned in the video, I'll explain that a little bit later. The groundwater, again, it's water that sits between the pore spaces and soil, gravel, and fractured rock. It is the main supply that Arizona Water Company has for the town of Superior, as the video said. I really like this graphic. It's put together by the Central Arizona Project, but it basically shows that there's obviously the surface, there's an underground layer that's unsaturated, there's the water table, which is the top of the aquifer, and then the aquifer, and then there are different levels of aquifer, bedrock. This is just an example of what it could look like. And essentially what we do is we take a water well, we put it to the depth that we think is appropriate. Our engineers and our hydrologists determine that, and then we pull the water out of the ground. In the video, it mentioned us putting Colorado River water back into the aquifer through things called by doing recharge. There are different ways to recharge the aquifer, but the most common one is to basically put together a huge basin, put the water in there, and then let it naturally flow down into the ground, and eventually over decades seep back into the aquifer. It takes a really long time because those pore spaces are so small. There are benefits of using groundwater. The ground is a natural filter, so the water quality of groundwater is typically significantly higher than surface water. Like you can imagine Colorado River water or Salt River water gets really dirty, especially with the canals and stuff. So there's less treatment that we have to do, and it is a common source of water in Arizona. One of the cons of using groundwater is that it's considered non-renewable. So it is really hard to basically put back all the water that we're pulling out. It takes a really, really long time. It's easy to pull the water out, but it's hard to put it right back where we got it from. So it's, again, one of the reasons why the Groundwater Management Act and the Department of Water Resources was put together. So as the video said, we retrieve our water from our wells down in the desert well field, 26 miles away from the town. Our full pumping capacity, if we needed to supply the amount of water to the town, is about 1,100 to 1,200 acre feet per year. The water quality the water is treated to federal and state drinking water standards. Bill and his staff are very diligent in making sure that we're taking samples every day, that we're complying with those requirements. If anyone is interested in any of the water qualities report that we have to put out yearly, there's information on our website. If you go to arizonawatercompany.com, click to water quality, consumer confidence reports, there's a section for Superior, and I think the last 3 reports are put out. So you can look through and see what's in our water, what gets treated, what levels, and then what are the maximum contaminant levels that the EPA puts together that we have to meet. This is the best way that someone described me to me. Oh yeah, Chris, sorry.
Just question on the wells. Like how deep are the wells?
That depends. I don't know that exact question.
Yeah, the deepest one's like 12. I think it's 1,250 feet out there.
Yeah. So just to make sure everyone heard, Bill said that the deepest well is about 1,250 feet. Keep in mind that's not where the water table is. That's just how deep we put our well, so that way if there is fluctuation in the water table, we're not having to dig deeper wells every few years.
How's the status of the wells at this point?
The ground, the levels, yeah, they're pretty stable. Yeah, they're stable.
I've heard from other hydrologists that the wells will drop about a foot a year on average. Is that generally where you're trying to?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly on all of those, but they're relatively stable.
So you're not seeing a drop?
Not huge drops. No. They're lower than they were many years ago, but I don't have all those statistics, so I don't know. We have a lot of wells in a lot of places, so it's hard to remember them all.
Especially the ones that are servicing us.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers with me.
That
Yeah.
well drops were going down more in the late 90s before the CAP came online. And then CAP replaced a whole bunch of groundwater pumping in the AMAs and everywhere adjacent to CAP. So all the groundwater levels came up, most areas. So, I mean, they were down near 1,200 feet just to hit water table out in Queen Creek, the town of Queen Creek, in the late 90s. But now, I mean, they're much higher.
Yeah.
It's like 300,
So it's like
400
600 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always going to be changing, right? Like it's not going to be a static number.
Well, if the CAP water goes down and that becomes less available and groundwater pumping goes up, then it can reverse itself. So that's why the Colorado River conversation is so important.
So in March, when I was in Preston, we had a whole conversation about the water.
Oh, okay.
There was somebody that was there speaking with the board.
Okay.
Our board members. And in reality, she stated that there was not a problem in this whole area with the water, but that's been over the last couple of years of the precipitation that we've had in this area for Arizona. So we've had so much
So the recharge of the groundwater is significantly dependent on precipitation rates, especially up north. That's where the groundwater really starts, from the snow levels up north. This past winter was absolutely amazing. We're reaching levels that I think we were at like 120% of snowpack, which is really good. However, the fact of the matter is that we've been in a drought statewide for over 20 years, and so we had a good year, and that's good. We would need many more good years to get out of a drought status as a state. So it's the reason why scientists care so much about, you know, the winter season and how much snow Flagstaff is getting, and other parts of the state. But yes, this winter was a really, really good winter for us as a state, but also for the Colorado River watershed. So up in Colorado, they had a bunch of really good snow too, and so the system had a really good year as far as CAP
So you're
goes.
not gonna have those, what you're looking for, because last year was the way it was, you're not gonna have accurate of what you're looking for. I know
The
what you're.
a hydrologist once told me, when you pull the groundwater, it's like you're drawing from a bank account.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the isotope readings say that the age of the water is 10,000 years old. So
Yep.
this is not a recharge it in a couple of years situation.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
That's why
There are active recharges that do accelerated thing, like there are a lot of injector well systems where they actually pump water back into the ground from surface water sources.
Yeah, Scottsdale does that.
we
Yeah.
we have to do some intentional work around it.
Yeah, and there is a lot of work happening around that, but that's,
Yeah.
we're not there yet, so nothing really to say about it, but we're talking about actual recharge projects in our community.
Yeah. And I will say, although I'm not in water resources, there have been people that have spent their entire careers tackling these topics, like our chief hydrologist and our water resources VP. Yeah. So I kind of described groundwater because it's described really effectively to me in this way, but a groundwater well is like a straw in a cup. Of course, if you draw water out of that straw quickly, then you get depleted quickly, but the bigger issue is what happens when there's another straw in the cup, and what happens when there's more straws in the cup. And so, well, again, that's one of the reasons why the Department of Water Resources is really important, because they manage how many straws are out there, how much water are they all pumping, how much water are we putting back. The bank account example is actually kind of the best example to do it, and I touch really lightly on our strategy, our water resource strategy as a company, in addressing that exact concern. But changing topics really quickly, so going to the Colorado River, I don't know why that says Casa Grande, but it gets to Arizona through the CAP system, the Central Arizona Project System. It's about 336 miles long in total, and it starts at Lake Havasu and it stops actually in Tucson. And there are a series of tunnels, pipelines, aqueducts, and pumping plants all along that channel. So how does it get used? Like Todd mentioned earlier, and the video said as well, recharging groundwater aquifers. This is in general how the water can be used. So it can be used to recharge. It can be used for direct delivery. So there are systems out there like in Tucson where they take the water, they clean it, and then they directly deliver it to their customers. A different kind of image of what we were talking about earlier. If you recharge over here, yes, it takes a really long time to get down, but it eventually joins the groundwater table. That's what an injection well that Chris was mentioning earlier does. It's basically a well that directly puts it down there instead of letting it filter out. And then usually a while away, that's where you put your well where you take the water out. Sometimes it can be used for irrigation for farms or golf courses, so that's when you don't treat it and you use it to irrigate. We'll get into why that's beneficial here in a bit, but here are just some photos. So specifically for Superior, we have about a 285 acre-foot allocation, so that's how much Colorado River we're allowed to receive for the town of Superior, and that number was determined when the Groundwater Management Act was put into place and they allocated out who was going to get how much. So that's a fixed number that is not able to change.
So that was done in 1980.
I believe so.
So if we decide we want to do some fixing up around here and putting some houses in that are on empty we already connect city services or whatever services we have here
Mhm.
and yours. How does that work if we end up wanting to build, let's say that we decide to build some extra, how's that gonna work for the economy of 285 for what we have right now, 2,800 residents?
So that
For
208,
1980, now since 1980, Superior has been dilapidated, is what I'm trying to the
Yeah.
mine closed in 82. So it's right in that little area where the town started to kind of break apart, in a sense. And now it's, I think it's kind of, coming back to where we're starting to look at things a little differently and bringing more people into town. And we have new residents coming in who want to build a home or live here. So how is that gonna work with that number? Let's say we annexed in, I don't know, some acreage and we decide we want to start building new stores or new things. How's that gonna work?
so I will say, although that's the CAP allocation for the town, that's not the total demand of the town. That is just the amount of Colorado River water that we're able to receive to offset the groundwater pumping that we're taking out of the ground. As far as how development in the town happens, that's typically, done, those conversations are done between the town and the water utility as far as like, okay, what is wanting to be done? How are we able to supply those water, get that water and all of that? One of the things that's important, and I did mention it in this presentation because it's one of those topics that I'd rather have my chief hydrologist address, but there's a program called the Assured Water Supply Program in an active management area. So if you're in an AMA and you want to grow and you want to develop, you essentially have to go to the Department of Water Resources as the developer and say, hey, this is what we want to build. We did a hydrologic study. This is how much water it requires. And before you can build anything, the department has to say, yes, you have proven to us that there is enough water in the active management area, and we will give you a permit to build. Currently, in the Phoenix AMA and the Pinal AMA, the department has halted providing assured water supply certificates to water utilities in order for development to happen. And at the department, they're trying to figure out what to do about that because that halt is based on the aquifer levels. I don't know if you want to touch on that because
Sure.
I think Todd knows a little bit more about that than I do.
So the Governor Hobbs a little while ago came out and gave a speech and said she's halting all assured water certificates based on groundwater.
Mhm.
And Superior has a very healthy groundwater aquifer, more than enough water. It supplied water for the town when it was twice our size. So there's plenty of water underground there. We can't use any of that for development. And what that means by development is any subdivision over 5 subdivided lots. So you can do build to rent, you can do apartments, you can do RV parks, you can't do subdivisions like the Highlands, it can't be built there. And in order to get an assured water certificate, what you would have to do now is buy that surface water allotment. You go to Gila River Reservation and you buy enough water to supply 100 years of water to your subdivision. And that number could be $600,000. That's one thing you have to do. The other thing is you have to figure out how to get that water
Mhm.
to the area of impact.
Right.
So you have to build a pipeline from CAP to the Superior well field or to the wells. And that is $8 to $10 million. So what the town has to do is work with Arizona Water, design a system, go out and get grant funding, build the system, and then that way, number one, we provide sustainability for the future so that our well field water stays healthy. Number two, it means that when you go to a developer, you're not asking them to spend $10 million to build a pipeline. You're asking them to go out and buy 0.27 acre feet per house per year so that you can build a subdivision. So we're working that problem now. It's a lot of money. It will take a while.
Yeah.
But that's how we'll get past that. But the way the rules, after the governor came out with that order, apparently the whole consensus, the problem is the Phoenix AMA, they calculate all the available water, ground water use, all the available surface water use, and that's the total amount. and then all the users have to fit within that total amount. And they're 4% oversold right now.
Yeah, but
So, because they're 4% oversold, part of that is just miscalculations. Like it says that some of these old agricultural properties are going to return to full productivity when we all know they're not. They're gonna become subdivisions. So, you know, there's more water in that model than there probably should be. But, you know, that's politics. That's not something we're gonna be able to fix. So we have to come up with a plan to get water to our area of impact so we can actually develop it. In the meantime, all we can do is apartments, you know, tiny home subdivisions, RV parks, things like that, where you don't subdivide the underlying ground. Anything less than 5 units, you can develop. So you could take 4 lots and build on them.
So is that why in AJ I see those brand new homes for, rent or lease?
Yeah,
instead
the
of
build to rent
lease?
conversation, yes. But Apache Junction had a big water allotment they had purchased a long time ago. And they gave that to the developers so they could build those on that 4,000 acres near AJ. So that is the only part of Superstition Vistas that's been built so far. Maybe the only part that's ever built, unless they figure out how to address that issue with water streams. Somebody's gonna have to go out and buy surface water allotments in order to be able to build.
Yeah, cause there's another development going in on Baseline by the junkyard.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff, I don't know, some of it might have gotten their certificates before this came out. Governor Hobbs only did that like 6 months ago.
Oh.
So, but, you know, Superior has taken a long time to get to this point, and just now we have interest in developing lots, and we have lots available, and it couldn't have been worse time. So now we can't do anything with these lots.
So the lots at the Highlands, we can't do anything with.
The lots at the Highlands, they're already
They're already done.
They're already
Okay,
done.
Perfect.
And again, it's just you couldn't build a new Highlands
Right.
subdivision. And the school has that 40 acres right across the road from the Highlands.
Can't do anything with it.
There was an investor who was talking to us about it, completely withdrew, because he can't get water.
Another question, why isn't some of the canals have covers on them? Cause don't we lose a lot of water in those canals to evaporation?
I think that's a Terry Sue question, not a me question.
Yeah, I've heard that question asked before, and I can't for the life of me remember the answer. But I do, because all of the SRP canals and the CAP canals are open.
Yeah.
And I know that there is a small percent that gets lost to evaporation, but I don't know that it's significant.
For the cost.
Yeah, for the cost of having to cover all of it.
The number I'd heard was something like 90–95% of those waters stay in the canal. But where water evaporates and gets lost is they're getting crops. 10% of that water goes back to groundwater. The rest of it evaporates or goes into the crops.
So some examples of where our water resources team distributes that CAP water is irrigation districts like the New Magma Irrigation and Drainage District and the Queen Creek Irrigation and Drainage District and then the Roosevelt Water Conservation District. And these are things called groundwater savings facilities. Essentially what that means is if we provide water to these areas, every acre foot that we provide them, that's 1 acre foot that they don't have to pump out of the ground. So we get a credit for that. And that credit we're allowed to pump where our wells are, as long as we pump it within the same year that we were able to give it to them. So it's one of those things that we're able to do to kind of protect the groundwater aquifers in certain areas. And that benefits, there are a lot of benefits to that because the more surface water we're able to give certain entities, the less groundwater that they're having to pump because they're able to now use that surface water. If you want more information on the CAP system, because it is a really interesting system, in 2021 I did a 4-part video series and I interviewed this guy named Dave Gunn, who he actually lives in town. Yeah, and he used to be the engineering manager for CAP. So we did a video, a 4-part video series where he explains the system. He addresses certain questions. You know, why is the CAP the way it is? How is it available? Why is it important to have CAP water available? It's a really cool series. And we actually filmed it after a huge rain event So in the background, you can see Queen Creek flowing. Yeah, it's very, very green. Yeah, it was super, super muddy as well. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you want more information about the CAP. And you would just go to Superior Sustainability Elevated on YouTube, and that's how you get to all those videos. And so effluent it's important to talk on it because it is an important water supply, but it's essentially treated wastewater that's been treated to a specific standard. Where does effluent get treated in the town? So the Superior Town Sewage Plant is where all the town effluent goes. Arizona Water Company is not in the wastewater business, so we actually don't treat any wastewater anywhere. We're just the water provider. And one of the benefits of effluent is once you clean it to a certain degree, it can be used for irrigation. So some areas will, not here necessarily, but irrigate like golf courses or different farm fields that have non-consumption crops like cotton and stuff like that or alfalfa. They'll use treated wastewater, or sometimes it's used to recharge the aquifer, basically put back into tributaries. So it's important water supply for people to think about. Why is it important to have multiple sources of water to depend on? So there's something called a diverse water supply portfolio that water resource managers basically try to achieve for a service area. So it's basically not putting all of your eggs in one basket. We don't want to be entirely reliant on groundwater because if something happens to that groundwater, we don't want to be without water. So that's why it's important to use surface water like CIP and even effluent, because if we're able to irrigate like big fields with effluent, then that's groundwater that we're not having to pump to water like baseball fields or football fields or different things like that. So it's important to make sure that we have diversity, kind of like with your bank account, what Chris was saying earlier. You know, you have your job, but if you have a side hustle and then some other form of money, then you're a little bit more safe for the future if something happens. This is a graph that is on the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and it basically shows this is water use over time, and this is population. And it essentially shows that water use was increasing up until the Department of Water Resources was formed. And then water use started decreasing per capita, so per person. And in 2019, we were using pretty much the same water as in 1957, but our population grew exponentially. And that's because we were regulating how much water people used and making sure that we were regulating how much water was taken out of the aquifer and stuff like that. So as a company, our water resource strategy has two parts to it. The first is to obtain and maintain a diverse water supply, which is what I was just talking about. And then the second part, which is also really important, is to make sure that we promote the efficient use of those supplies. And that's kind of when we get into water conservation. So as a company, we're trying to build out our conservation programs for our communities so that they have the resources available to conserve water, but we're also doing things to try to make sure that we're using water efficiently and conserving it so that we're not wasting as well. So we've built these things called integrated demand management programs. It's essentially a water conservation program, but we try to educate our residents that yes, conserving water is the right thing to do, but it can also have an impact on the total amount of water that we need to pump for our community, which is good for the water resources in the area. Each program that we've launched has been customized to the community to make sure that we're providing things that people actually utilize. And then the goal of these is to build relationships with our communities, but also to achieve water savings. And it's the reason why I was able to connect with Chris and be here today. So sustainability and water conservation, I'm going to dive into that for the town of Superior, but before I do that, are there any more questions on any of the water resource stuff? Yeah, Chris?
If there was a competition of per like home water use for each town, like where would Superior stand? Meaning like, do we use the same average of water, or do we use less than most people? And who are the big water users within?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because it's difficult to measure statewide how much water every home is using. An organization called AMWA, Arizona Municipal Water Users Association. So the 10 big cities in central Arizona, like Phoenix, Chandler, Gilbert, Tempe, Mesa, the rest of them, They did a statewide study to determine that exact question. How much is an average home in Arizona using in water one day? Across the state, the average is 120 gallons per person per day. But keep in mind, that's also taking into account, you've got homes in different parts of the state that have acre lots,
That's
that
what I'm
have
saying,
grass.
the distribution is
So,
what it's
yeah, so it really just depends. But some properties also have pools and things like that. But the average is 120 per person per day. We tried to do a study in 2021 to determine what the average for a person in the town of Superior was. And the average in Superior came in, I want to say like between 66 and 75 gallons per person per day. So significantly below the state average, which is good, but with conservation, it's a tricky question because we're not getting people to 0 gallons, right? Like there are a certain number of gallons that people need to use for different things, for hygiene, for cooking, for things like that. And a big thing that I always try to highlight with conservation is that the goal of conservation is to make sure that people are using water as efficiently as possible, maintaining the lifestyle that the community wants to maintain. So like in Tucson, for example, you don't see anyone having turf in their front yards, right? So different communities have different lifestyles that they have and that they're maintaining, whereas other communities in the state will have grass in backyards and maybe desert landscaping in front yards. For a water utility, and especially a conservation person in a water utility, it is not my goal to make anyone feel badly about how they want to use water. It's about helping people use water as efficiently as possible to maintain whatever lifestyle they want to have.
How about
Right.
the numbers for commercial?
Commercial is hard because there's such a wide range and diversity in commercial property. So you might have like a mom and pop restaurant that doesn't use a lot of water, and then also considered commercial is like a luxurious resort or hotel that also has pools and different amenities.
Well, like we have the, I don't know, the white, what's the white one? Salt, is that a salt mine or something?
What, you're talking about
The white one?
the Perlite, Omnia or Imerus?
I think you're talking about, yeah, like that, like something like that. And they obviously use a lot of water.
If you look at the slide previously, all industrial users put together are 6% of the usage in the entire state. So,
Way back in the beginning.
yeah, if you look at, the number one user is by far agriculture, 72%. The number one crop it's used for is alfalfa. So we are a huge net exporter of alfalfa and cotton.
Yeah.
So if you look at users of water, all of the industrial users, the power plants, all of them put together are 6% use, including all the mines, all of the compare that to municipal, it's what, 28%?
Municipal does count commercial though.
Yeah.
So
That's
there's a
commercial, not
difference
industrial.
between industrial and commercial, yeah.
Industrial, we only have 3 industrial users in the entire town.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have a slide in here towards the end that touches exactly on how we've been trying to help commercial water users decrease their water use. Or understand if there are ways that they can conserve. So sustainability and conservation for the town of Superior. In 2021, on August 14th, we launched a program called Sustainability Elevated. It ties into the big theme, the elevated theme that the town has. We took a sustainability angle for that specifically instead of water conservation, because if we did it sustainably, or if we focused on it sustainability, we can also loop in community partners like Regenerating Sonora, Rebuild Superior, the Boyce Thompson Arboretum, versus if it was just conservation, it would be a lot more pigeonholed. So that's just a photo from the launch, and that's the logo. We have a landing page, so if you go to sustainabilityelevated.com, we have a website where you can see we have written out why we're doing what we're doing, what the goals are, and what the intention is. On that landing page, we also have a frequently asked questions document that tries to address some of the big things that we thought would be pertinent for people to know about. And that's also something that we try to update as we see like big topics come up on social media. We do have a launch video that we put together that features a mayor that I hold dear to my heart that I'll show. It's only a 3-minute video, and I'll catch that.
My name is Mila Besich, Mayor of Superior, Arizona. Our goal as mayor and town council is to make sure that Superior is a livable and safe and healthy community for all residents. We want to be good stewards of our land, our water, and all resources in and around Superior to ensure that our quality of life is some of the best quality of life in and around the state of Arizona. Water is critically important to our community, and making sure that our watershed stays healthy, which will not only help us preserve and protect our watershed, but make sure that we have safe places to recreate and improve the amenities in our community.
I am Linda Namath, and I'm the Executive Director here at Joyce Thompson Arboretum. Here at the Arboretum, we've done a lot of research over the last 97 years. Some of the trees and plants that we have here have been here since the 1920s. A lot of people don't think of botanical gardens as places of conservation, but by our very nature, we are places of conservation. About 10% of our species here are endangered species, or they're rare in the wild, and we are a refuge for them. Joyce Thompson Arboretum, in its long history, has really been about teaching stewardship to people and modeling stewardship as well. So what we really want to do is encourage people to take care of nature and to take care of plants and see their importance in a bigger picture. When people plant and landscape with native plants, they are conserving the water and helping the broader ecosystem. So it's a win-win.
Water conservation is very important because we live in a state that is very dry and is currently going through quite an extreme drought. Right now, Superior already does a really great job at conserving our water and doing smart things like having a low water use landscaping and being efficient in our businesses. We need to continue being stellar examples of water conservation in our community to make sure that there's enough water for everyone, especially as our community continues to grow.
Hello, my name is Sunal Brumberg. I'm the owner and operator of Copper Mountain Motel here in Superior, Arizona. As a business owner is to conserve the natural resources. One of the things that I did to conserve the water is to upgrade all the plumbing that resulted in reducing the water usage for the business, and also planting the tree that requires less water.
As a water provider for the town of Superior, Arizona Water Company wants to make sure the community has enough water to
I always forget I'm part of these
We're
things.
committed to helping Mayor Mila achieve her goals for the community, which is why Arizona Water Company, in partnership with the town of Superior, is launching Sustainability Elevated, an online resource for the community to learn about sustainability, water conservation, and
Got
more.
my hair done. That looked nice. See, this is how I make bad decisions. I start to see the blonde again, and I'm like, dang it, maybe I should do that.
Should be dyeing it tomorrow.
I know, I come back. It's blonde again. As we said, or as I said before the video, so with this program, we were able to partner with the Arboretum. We've been putting on plant sales for the communities twice a year since we launched in 2021. So we've had 5 sales in total, and essentially, as long as you're a Superior resident and you bring your bill, you get 2 free plants from a selected a list that the Arboretum puts together that are native, that do well in the environment. The mayor was the spearhead behind that. She was like, I want people to get more plants. She wants people to have more native plants. There was also the fires a few years ago that wiped out a lot of the natural plants for the pollinators, and she wanted to help support that and also just beautify the community and show people what different pollinating plants can look like. So it's been an incredible partnership. We've given away, I want to say, like at least over 250 plants in total. The coolest thing is that I often see the same people coming. Like I had one lady come to every single sale, so she's had at least 10 plants to her landscape, which is awesome. Not all of them make it, you know, sometimes plants die, obviously. but at least, you know, people are able to kind of practice and explore that without having to spend the money on the plans. Yeah.
Only because I see it, but some of the native folks that are like from this little area in here, they don't necessarily go to the Arboretum.
Mhm.
Like there's, I don't know, who knows why they don't, like,
Yeah.
I haven't been there in 2 years,
Mhm.
but it's still, I think if you made it, and I don't know how you could make it more obtainable for them to do something like that, but maybe in their bill, you put a little coupon in there, and it actually makes them go to the Arboretum in order to learn a little bit more about that. Maybe
Yeah.
do something like that, because they're more apt to open their bill and take a look at it and see that,
Mhm.
and it gives them a little bit more incentive. It sounds kind of old school, but a lot of these people here are old school. You know, and
Yeah.
that doesn't work sometimes for some of them, and there's just certain little things, but if you put it in their bill, they will go and they will get their 2 free plants, and they'll probably even buy more, and
Yeah.
wanna actually be a part of it, just putting it out there.
Yeah, it's funny because the first 2 years we didn't do bill inserts, or like the first 2 sales,
Yeah.
and then we did, and
Wow.
that helped a lot. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it worked out. I don't know what happened this fall, but yeah, that has been a really great way to get people to go to the Arboretum. And we've built such a great relationship with them. We're trying to explore more ways to get local people out there checking things out.
And
So
maybe the local businesses around too, give them something so they can hand it out to people coming into their places. Just
Yeah.
to kind of share that networking part.
yeah.
Because I have online billing and I didn't see the thing for the last free sale.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang it.
Or maybe I just didn't scroll down far enough.
I think with the online billing it's trickier because you have to click on the attachment.
Oh.
I'm open to ideas to try and get the word out for it, yeah, including doing presentations like these. Because if you follow the Facebook page, Sustainability Elevator, we post about it and we try to send ads out a ton about it too.
Is everybody on the Superior Arizona app?
Yeah.
Because, well, we put things like this sale on the new app. It's pretty cool because it'll send you a notification on your phone and let you know.
Yeah, so it's a program that people love. We're hoping to continue to do it. And plus we get to spend the day. We get to spend the day out here. I personally love the drive from Phoenix to Superior. The next one is going to be in March. So mark your calendars. It'll be up there. We also, our program and all the different things that we've been doing throughout the years, Mayor Mila and I won an award from the Boyce Thompson Arboretum just a few months ago for the sustainability efforts that we've been doing. So it's been great working with her and working with Todd to try and make things happen for the community. We also try to attend as many local events as we can, the different events that happen in the fall and in the spring. Yeah, the Borough Run's always super fun. We did the home tour one year. We're just trying to get the word out to folks about this stuff. We also have some free resources that I want to make sure that you all know about. So as Superior residents, we have these free water conservation kits that have low flow shower heads in them, a toilet flapper, and different like actual physical devices that people can install to conserve water in their homes. And so if you just go online to azwater.com/conservation, you can get information and put in a request for that. We also have different conservation books. These 4 books talk about different topics, including landscaping, plants, how to fix leaks, how to water plants, and those are available online for free as well.
Is there a way that we could get like a few of them for here that we could give out?
Yeah, I think we can make that happen. The only thing that sucks about these books is the organization that we purchase them through. They only print them once every 3 years, and because of COVID, it threw everything off. So I
especially talking about the kids stuff.
The kids.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
kids.
The kids
Oh,
would
I
like
see.
to have kids here,
Yeah.
so when we have.
We all want kids, but
Well,
if I want kids here.
So the challenging thing about the kits is it's a pilot program right now, so it's only currently allowed in or available to our service areas that are like on the eastern side of the state. So Apache Junction, Superior, Miami, Globe, Oracle, Bisbee, Sierra Vista. So the thing about the kits is people have to actually go online and order them so that we can track how many people have gotten a kit so we can get estimated water savings.
Well, maybe put us on the list so when you actually do get them like that here, it's nice, because if somebody comes in, we can actually give them a kit, and
the
they
kits?
can put it in their home, because
Yeah.
people are not, people are
Those
just
people on
interested.
site, yeah.
People are lazy, I mean, they just don't, but
Yeah.
if they're here and they're learning about something like this, we will share that with them and say, you need to put this in your house, and they'll 90% of the time do it.
Yeah, we should talk more later and figure out how we can do that. Because that's the only challenging thing is like every time we start a new program, we have to justify it to our regulating bodies. So they always ask us, okay, you did this program, what are the water savings? So that's why with this
Maybe
one.
that's just an outlet for you guys, that you use, like Leo's community or regenerating Sonora in like different areas as your outlet, put it out and have, take count of that.
Ooh, okay, here's an idea. What if we did during an event at Leo's, if people came, we would get them signed up on the spot and then give them their kit.
Yes.
People all sign up here.
It's like when we give
Yeah.
out blankets, you know, they take names, they take things, and they say what they've done, or food, or any of that.
Okay, cool. You write that down, Bill? You got it in your mind?
Yeah.
We'll talk later. Okay, cool. Another thing is we launched our first ever Project Wet Festival, which is pretty common throughout the state. It's a festival geared towards fourth graders that teach them about water conservation. So the 4 topics that they learn about is the watershed, groundwater, conservation technology, and the water cycle. So because earlier this year was our first ever festival that we did for the 4th graders, but it's something that we plan on doing for the next few years. We already have the next one planned. I want to say it's in April of next year. The 4th graders here will actually go down to Apache Junction and join the big Apache Junction festival that we have. It's super fun if you're interested in volunteering and participating in that. It's a heck of a lot of fun teaching those 4th graders, and it's all hands-on. So there's like, it's geared towards getting kids outside, putting their hands on models, and learning about these topics while being engaged. So that's another thing that we're
Is it true
doing.
that Monica Ramirez is involved in that somehow through U of A? I think she mentioned like she's like somehow like a professor involved in the front end, but I didn't know how.
I actually don't know who that is. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm also bad with names,
Yeah.
so I might know her, but I just have a hard time remembering names.
She does a lot of really great work with us here.
Yeah?
Yeah, at University of Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah. The U of A is wonderful to work with, and they're where Project What is based out of. Another thing that we try to do is we try to do in-person system tours. So we try to get people out on the site, and we go over the whole water journey with them in person. So, yeah,
That's a great idea.
we've closed the registration for the one in December. Well, because it's happening on Monday, so all the prep materials are already ready. But it's something that we try to do at least once a year. So if you guys are interested, Chris, the next time we do it, I can send you an email and let you guys know. We've had council members come. We've had Mayor and Todd come. Jim Schneck has come. Like, yeah, people are coming. The first time we did it, we had a few news reporters come, and they took pictures and they did this article all about the system because it really is a unique system. Especially when you go inside and you see the big pump and the big turbine to get the water, the 26 miles. That part's super cool.
So it's done down in Florence?
It's down south of the Florence Junction. That's where our well sites are now. And then, addressing your question earlier for commercial properties, we have a contract with a company called Water Resources Consulting, and they specialize in commercial water audits. And this gentleman, Gary Woodard, who owns the company, they basically go in, they do a full inspection of water use for an area, they look at the billing history and what the trends are, and then they physically assess the property, determine where there are leaks, where there can be improvements and efficiency, and then they spit out this report that summarizes everything that the commercial property can do to conserve water. It's something that we decided to do because we don't have a ton of resources for commercial properties for conservation right now. It takes a little bit of time, but we were able to do a bunch of them in November. We plan on doing more in the spring. But these are all the areas that were able to be assessed through this, and this is all paid for by Arizona Water Company. So Boyce Thompson Arboretum had a big, huge audit done. The local Church of Latter-day Saints, the Superior Pool, the cemetery, the high school, and the ADOT rest area were all assessed with reports put together. That way commercial people can also know what they can do to support conservation. And then, this is my most exciting, the project that I'm most excited about right now is through Mayor Mila, we applied and got a grant, a Green Infrastructure Project grant. So essentially what we're trying to do is convert the lot on Coleman Alley into a rain garden for people to be able to walk through and learn about rainwater harvesting, both passive and active rainwater harvesting. And so the goal of this lot is to take it and through rainwater harvesting help it capture the rainwater to grow plants in the area, to reduce flooding, because I know there's a lot of flooding that happens on Main Street because water kind of goes down and collects and then rushes. And then transform this empty lot into a public amenity where there'll be benches and we're hoping to put some signs up that tell people the different plants and educate people on these things. The status of the project right now is we hired a landscape architect to put together the plan. We've added in a water main to help support the plants in the first few years. And we're going to be putting on some workshops so that the community can come in and actually help us put the garden together. So our first ever workshop that's going to be, getting the community involved and breaking ground and adding plants in is going to be on January 6th. We have an online form. If you want to go online and learn more about the project in general, it's on the landing page as well. But we also have a flyer, and I've brought copies with me if you're interested in signing up and participating. So people can register and join us on the 6th for a full day of planting in early January, which is going to be chilly. But if you're interested in getting involved, just let me know, because it's going to be our goal. Our goal is to not only do this as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but also teach people while they're digging and while they're planting and installing the irrigation system and learning about rainwater harvesting and stuff.
Well, it's nice to see that. We have one up here on Canal that the community has been doing for a while, but it's nice to see this.
Yeah. This is another thing where Mayor Mila is like, do you want to sign up and do this workshop thing and get a grant and then put together a project? And I was like, sure, Mayor Mila, let's do it. And this is what came out of it. It's the project we decided on. So, if you want one.
There's also a larger application pending to expand it to other areas.
Yes.
Including the stone dip, that's an acre that we got donated from, when Dr. Wilt sold it, the gentleman who bought the buildings donated a lot, so we want to turn it into another park.
Nice.
A lot more water there, so we could probably do a lot more.
Yeah. This, within the grant funding that we got, this is the best lot that we could, or the best area that we could pick to do this, and have it be like super visible by the public and all that.
Right.
And that is it. I don't know what time it is, but I hope it. Oh, it's 7:10. All right. Yeah, sure.
Well, I was waiting to see if you said anything about it.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm on Facebook and I'm a member of this group, social group that they just nonstop rag about Resolution Copper totally destroys the water in the future for security. And I'm just wondering how Arizona Water feels about that.
So, again, I'm not the water resource manager, and I'm not a part of those conversations because I'm the conservation person. But I will say we've got hydrologists, we've got engineers, we've got our water resources department working with the town and working with Resolution Copper towards the common goal of a sustainable future for Superior. So, and I'll also say that as a water utility, we are legally required to provide water to the town. So, within our water quality standards and all of that. So I
work at Resolution Copper, I'm all for it, right? I was just hoping some of the people that rag daily on their over here.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you're not.
I know you're legally required, but is there a contract that you have for the water?
They're a regulated utility through the
Arizona Corporation Commission.
Corporation Commission. So they are, their rates, all their infrastructure, all their water rights, they're all regulated heavily. So
But I mean service areas though.
yeah, we're in their service area. They have a
Yeah.
service area,
Right,
right?
what I'm saying is like, do you have the choice, Arizona Water Company, to like continue to service Superior, like after a certain point in time?
We don't have an exit strategy.
Does that mean?
So there's no plan for Arizona Water Company to sell any of our systems. So we're going to serve it in
But
perpetuity.
I mean, do you contract with each municipality?
No.
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 That's what you don't do.
No. As a private utility, we're separate. From the town
So you're
municipality.
obligated by the state to provide water to the town Superior?
Yes,
We are
because it's
legally
in our
required
area, yeah, we're
to
legally
provide
required to provide
water.
water.
Yeah. To all of our service areas.
So it's an agreement with the state, basically. Yeah?
Yeah.
And
Yes, you can say yes.
and to address the resolution question, the water that is in the desert oil field is more than sufficient for the town as it is, but because there's going to be some pumping coming from there, the town wanted assurance that it would stay whole. Our agreement says, with resolution, they've signed a mitigation agreement. It's been placed as a stipulation in the EIS mitigations that they will help us make sure that not only we have enough water, we have enough water for future development as well, so we can grow. So they're committed by contract with the town to make sure our system stays robust and that we have enough water, not only for today, but for tomorrow.
Well, I know a lot about this. I was just hoping.
Yeah.
Some of those people that it's over for,
I would say a lot of those comments are not necessarily based on the actual current numbers. They're kind of based on dialogues in the past or outside projections. They may not be based on the EIS itself. The EIS is 3,000 pages long. I don't know anybody who's read it but me. So, and it covers exactly where all the water use is going to be. For instance, the groundwater that's pumped from underground. There's a lot of people say, oh my God, that's going to be released and it's going to contaminate the. If you look at the EIS, they're going to use every drop of that locally for their own production. It's not leaving the property. That's part of their water balance for their use.
I drank coffee today from treated mine water. No problem. Leave it alone.
No, I think the only question I have because I have questions about like when we talk about water, groundwater, and everything, but I think the only one relevant now in my mind is like what's the common interest between y'all and the desert wellfield area? Like what are you guys trying to work out right now?
Ooh, what do you mean? Like, why did we select desert
Aren't there
wellfield?
like certain understandings and agreements that need to be made between Arizona Water Company and Resolution Copper desert wellfield area?
I am not involved in any of those conversations to be able to address that.
I am. But that's a conversation that's questions for my presentation more than this one.
Yeah.
Yes, there are, and part of that conversation around accessing water and bringing that up from the CAP canal is partially a question of Resolution has purchased 350,000 acre-feet of water. They have to get that to Superior to use it. That's, based on what they're saying, that is their entire usage for the entire 40 years. Because they've been working on new technology the entire time and reducing the water use for all of their systems. So they feel they don't need to purchase any more water. They have purchased all the water they're going to need for all the production, but they have to get it here. So they have to put in a pipeline from the CAP canal to get to for this area. They don't need it for another 10 years. And it's all based, what if the EIS doesn't pass? They're not gonna spend that money until they know if they're actually gonna have an operation. So there's going to be agreements. They're probably gonna be conditional on different stages, different things happening. Do they get the permits?
There's water there anyways, I mean, they're pumping water out anyways, so they don't need that water right now. It's a natural spring for everything.
The water coming, being pumped underground right now, goes to the water treatment plant up on the hill.
Yeah.
It's about 1,300 acre feet a year. It's shipped to New Magna Irrigation District. It's mixed with CAP water and it irrigates alfalfa and cotton.
Yeah, we know that now.
Yeah.
It
Right,
is,
like,
it is,
you know,
Sent to the settings.
yeah, it is being sent to that.
they don't get any credit for it.
But-
It's a groundwater. It
Right.
just goes to that. And what it does is it reduces the amount of water that the New Magna Irrigation District uses from other sources. So they're doing less groundwater pumping out there.
It's gotten better.
Been doing it for 15 years.
It's gotten, but now, they were pumping out middle nowhere at one point, because I was at that meeting. But, so, even though you don't believe that, I do know that part of it, but it has changed a lot since that has happened, and they've changed themselves in trying to make sure they've done right. So I am aware of that.
Yeah,
They're
and
pumping that there from the beginning.
I've seen
We're not, they're.
I've seen the pipe coming out and going into the canal out there in Queen.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
let's
they
see if we
don't-
have any other really good questions.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to go home?
Yeah.
Is there, I have two questions. My first question is there ever a future where water is free? Or will it, for the rest of my life, will I have to pay for water? Unless I provide it for myself, like through a system that I install.
So, I gotta think about that.
short answer is no.
You're always gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah, the core problem is it's just like your power or everything else. It takes infrastructure to get it from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Especially if we're going out and saying, okay, we're not gonna use wells, we're not gonna let everybody drill wells all over the place and take all the water out of the aquifer. So not every little house has its own well. You put it in a central regulated organization, they control the amount of use, they control the end users, they can make it more sustainable.
So there is no plans for, like there's no intention for it to ever be free.
It's always going to cost to bring the water to the
I don't
town.
believe that, actually, they're cool.
It'd have to be
I believe that
as a common
actually.
resource to be part of the commons, like that, there's historical precedent for that, but that's, I don't think that's.
It's not that
My
much.
other question.
Well, it's just like it's really, it's dependent on like the kind of culture that our generation, or the generations after us, decide like how we wanna live and what our lifestyle will be. So it could change, and I believe that for me, we are our children, it could be free.
I understand the emotional reasons you could make that argument, but from a practical point of view.
Yeah.
You still have to have a pipe that goes in, you have to have a pump that pumps it out of the ground, you have to have a dam that collects it from the surface. All of those things are not just expensive, they're incredibly expensive.
Like, for instance, you know, with everything that's happening in Superior, you just got done saying, in order for us to have housing and new things coming into this town, it's, you know, he said 8 to 10 million, I know it's 15 million bucks, I mean, I can tell you.
By the
that
time I
right
get
now.
the grant, yeah.
Right, it's 15 million bucks, okay, and that money has, even though it's a grant, it still has to come from somebody.
Somebody's paying a tax.
Somebody's gonna have to pay a little bit of the tax, the federal government, state, whatever that is. So, when you really look at it, $1 a day for fees, if you spend a little bit more, but it's for a service. And is that gonna be like
that the water resources for the state are probably gonna change dramatically in the next 10 years, just because of the fact that we're in a drought. What that looks like, I don't know. I know that there are places looking at innovative solutions to try and provide or create additional sources of water, like direct potable reuse, where you take effluent and you clean it to drinking water standards, and then that's now like a closed loop system where you're providing water to an area, you're cleaning it, and then you're re-providing water to an area. So there's technology like that being developed, so that way we can have, like I mentioned earlier, diverse water portfolio, so you're not banking on one source of supply. But I mean, people are coming up with interesting technologies all the time, and even back in the day, people, when they heard about the CAP system and the canal system as it ran through the state, they thought it was impossible and was never going to happen. And now it happens, and it's a really reliable source for the state. So I'm not exactly sure what the future holds.
It's an interesting question to think about. Like, yeah, we want to have people continue to have the lifestyles they have, but depending on how scarce the resources, those expectations have changed.
It's interesting when you look at communities across the world that have faced more severe water crises, like in places in South Africa, places that people still choose to live despite exposure to natural resources or natural disasters and things like that. So. If you do have more questions, we've got an email address dedicated just to water resource questions from the public or water conservation questions from the public. So if you think of something related to water resources, that goes straight to our chief hydrologist, Jeff, who's not here, so he can't tackle those questions for me. But yeah, if you email those to there, we'll get back to you guys pretty quickly. Thanks.
This was really informative. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
That was awesome. Let's see. Okay, we had some questions on the chat. Is Arizona Water Company sponsoring or supporting localized water conservation other than education? What does it take to be designated an agricultural district? Oh, these are good questions.
Designated an agricultural district?
Okay, the first one was, is AZ Water Company sponsoring or supporting localized water conservation other than education? Question mark.
Yeah, I would say that we, like an example other than education is the commercial audits that we do with that contractor. And I also will say that even before we launched that program, you know, Bill and his team have been doing historically water conservation efforts. So like for example, if someone calls and they have an issue on their bill and the customer service rep isn't able to help them identify what's going on because their bill has increased, a field staff member will go out and do a personal in-person audit to try and help them determine if they have a leak and where it is, if it's inside or outside and things like that. So there are efforts outside of just education that are concrete, or like for the conservation kit, for example, that's not necessarily just education.
And then there's this question about, thank you, about being designated as an agricultural district area. I don't know anything about that, but is there anything you can say about that?
Agricultural district area. I don't know if that, I don't know if that means like for some areas that get flood irrigation, then the community can basically become an irrigation district, but I don't know what the specifics of that would be.
Okay, how does gray water use factor into conservation efforts?
Oh, gray water. I forgot to mention that. People have been asking a lot about that, but gray water is essentially when you use like sink water or like laundry water to water your landscape. So black water is like your toilet water, your shower water, because it can be potentially hazardous with different things, but gray water systems are like, yeah, if you're going to plumb your landscape or your laundry so that every time you wash a little laundry, it could go and water trees or different plants like that. We don't have any resources other than information to help people with that right now, but I don't know of the only municipality that I know that helps people in that way is the city of Tempe has a rebate for like components of gray water systems, but it's a hard thing to help people transition into, other than providing them education information.
My mom did that.
Yeah.
It's right there in Tempe, off of Elmwood Mill.
Yeah.
So her backyard, she just had it.
Yeah.
Sedio says, this requires a complete restructuring of homes for the most efficient usage, going from city to gray to black water.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sedio. Good point. I mean, like gray water use for landscaping as an option.
Yeah. I mean, my mom, we don't use a dishwasher. My mom refuses, and every time we do the dishes, she makes us soap in one water and rinse in another, and yells at me if I don't take it out and water a plant with it. So that's like the simple man's gray water system.
Yeah, that's my non. Okay, so
I mean, I use like Dawn, but we mainly use like the rinsing water. Yeah. If she's not looking, I'll just dump the soap water.
Okay, then there's a suggestion on biodegradable soaps that won't harm plants for gray water use.
Yeah, there's specific soaps that you can buy. Gray water is people get really interested over gray water systems.
You can use gray.
We use gray water.
Nice.
So we were able to do that with our stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Was this being broadcast?
Superior should invest in reservoir development to collect water during heavy rains. Use it over time in the parks.
I think that's what Todd was talking about with the master plan, the rainwater harvesting master plan that's happening. There's plans being put into place to determine where does the water collect and how can it be used for rainwater harvesting, so that it stays local instead of rushing and going down.
That was the Garland Speck presentation on watershed management. So we've got the grant, and we submitted the grant for watershed management.
Yeah. Hopefully more will come from that. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah,
and thanks everyone for being here.
Bye.
Peace out.